The tension in the studio was palpable as Megyn Kelly, known for her formidable interviewing style, faced off against Prince Harry in what quickly turned into a televised showdown. The episode started under the guise of a standard interview, with Kelly asking probing questions about the prince's claims against the royal family and his narrative of public life. From the moment Harry sat down, Kelly's tone was firm, her expressions sharp, her questions sharp. She refused to let rehearsed talking points slide. Within minutes, she challenged him on inconsistencies, accusations, and the contradictions she perceived in his public statements. The live audience, accustomed to polite discourse, watched in stunned silence as Kelly pressed him relentlessly, asking why certain allegations lacked detail, demanding specifics about grievances, and pointing out what she framed as selective victimhood. She cut through evasions and interruptions, turning the interview into a moment of accountability rather than a platform for scripted narrative. The confrontation climaxed when Kelly publicly called out aspects of Harry's version of events, questioning whether his framing of persecution had become a form of self-exoneration. The prince, pushed off balance by Kelly's relentless pace and unwillingness to defer to royal status, struggled to regain control. The once polished dialogue devolved into terse rebuttals and mounting tension. As the live cameras rolled and the audience held its breath, Kelly landed what felt like a final blow, a challenge so direct that Harry lagged for a response. In that silence, the moment crystallized. This was not a friendly chat, this was a battle for narrative. From the moment the cameras flicked on, the atmosphere in the studio crackled with tension, as though the air itself anticipated conflict. Megyn Kelly, veteran journalist, seasoned interrogator, unafraid to push powerful people into corners, sat steady behind her desk, her eyes precise and unblinking. Across from her sat Prince Harry, upright and reserved, yet visibly bracing for the questions to come. What was sold as a high-stakes interview on The View quickly turned into a showdown, with Kelly methodically picking apart the prince's narrative, pressing him to defend bold claims about the royal family, mental health, institutional racism, and the personal cost of public life. The moment Harry tried to pivot to prepared talking points, a familiar refrain of victimhood, betrayal, and a quest for truth, Kelly pounced, cutting him off mid-sentence and demanding to know the raw facts. Which precise event do you reference when you say you were silenced? What was the date? Who was present? What was the verifiable harm? Her voice, calm but uncompromising, framed him as a man under oath, not a celebrity telling a memoir. Kelly's style was relentless. She exposed discrepancies, followed up on evasions, and refused to allow him to glibly sidestep direct challenges. In that charged exchange, the interviewer became a prosecutorial force, not merely a neutral host. The studio audience, the production crew, and millions watching at home seemed suspended in collective shock. This was not a fluff piece or a PR opportunity, but a full-blown interrogation. At one point, Kelly leaned forward, delivering a line striking in its bluntness. She accused Harry of adopting a framework of persecution that risked making him judge, jury, and victim in his own story. That strategic pivot threw Harry off balance. His posture stiffened, his voice faltered under pressure, and for a moment the prince seemed to search for safer ground. The live cameras captured it all, every shift in expression, every hesitation, every flicker of defensiveness, and Kelly seized the moment to land what felt like a final, defining question. If he pressed so hard on accusations of injustice, was he open to scrutiny himself? In the ensuing silence, the weight of the exchange settled over the studio like an electric hush, a confrontation in real time, where the balance of power teetered between the interviewer's resolve and the guest's narrative. The second paragraph dives deeper into the fallout, contrasting public reaction, contextual background, and the clash of privilege versus accountability. The online reaction was instantaneous. Social media lit up with clips and debate, viewers split between praising Kelly's hard-nosed approach and defending Harry's emotional candor. Some called it a moment of journalistic courage, Kelly refusing to let a high-profile figure opine unchecked, while others accused the interviewer of lacking empathy, treating royal trauma as fodder for interrogation. Commentators dissected every frame. Harry's momentary stutter, the way his eyes flicked to offstage advisors, Kelly's unyielding gaze, the manner in which she refused to yield even when norms might suggest deference to royal stature. Behind the scenes, insiders speculated that producers had anticipated fireworks but may not have foreseen how sharply Kelly would press. Critics argued that by treating him as a public figure first and a wounded individual second, Kelly forced a reckoning between accountability and sympathy. Supporters of Prince Harry countered, he had already endured enough scrutiny and that the interview risked reframing his trauma as spectacle. Meanwhile, palace watchers and royal correspondents assess the damage. Would this exchange shift public perception, weaken the prince's narrative control, or inspire new rounds of backlash from supporters on both sides of the Atlantic? The confrontation underscored a deeper tension in celebrity journalism today. When does a public figure's right to tell their story give way to the interviewer's right to challenge it? In this case, Kelly asserted the latter, demonstrating that even a prince is vulnerable to skeptical, unsparing questioning. The physical drama, hard cuts, sharp rejoinders, forced pauses, was matched by symbolic undertones. Kelly, the media veteran, playing the role of guardian of truth; Harry, the royal insider turned rebel, resisting the pressure but exposed under the glare of public scrutiny. As the broadcast ended, viewers were left not with closure but with ignition, debate aflame, reputations in flux, and a potent reminder that no narrative, even one built on celebrity and sympathy, is immune to interrogation. In the days that followed, the media storm surrounding the encounter reached a fever pitch. Every major outlet ran headline variations of the clash, some hailing Kelly's performance as fearless journalism, others condemning it as aggressive ambush. Analysts from both conservative and liberal platforms weighed in, and the debate over who won the exchange quickly morphed into something much deeper: a cultural referendum on celebrity victimhood, truth in media, and the fragile contract between public figures and the press. Supporters of Kelly argued that in an era plagued by soft interviews and curated media narratives, her insistence on uncomfortable truths was a necessary corrective. She refused, they said, to play into the sanitized messaging that too often protects the powerful, regardless of how sympathetic their stories may seem. Her critics, however, pointed to a lack of empathy in her approach, suggesting that while accountability is essential, the interview teetered into prosecutorial overreach, especially given Prince Harry's mental health disclosures and the trauma he's publicly discussed over the years. On the other side, Prince Harry's PR team released a carefully worded statement the next morning, thanking The View for a space to have difficult conversations, but noticeably made no mention of Kelly. Behind the scenes, insiders hinted at damage control. Sources close to the Sussex camp suggested that Harry had not been fully briefed on Kelly's interview history and that expectations had been set for a softer, daytime TV tone rather than an adversarial encounter. Meanwhile, late-night hosts and podcast pundits used the exchange as fuel for commentary, sketch comedy, and even academic discussion. Media schools dissected the interview frame by frame in lecture halls, drawing comparisons to past historic confrontations, from Frost Nixon to Oprah Lance Armstrong. The entire episode became a case study in modern media dynamics: how fast a narrative can turn, how easily public empathy can shift, and how one televised moment can redraw the boundaries of fame, credibility, and cultural power. Whether Kelly's approach will be remembered as a brave stand for journalistic rigor or a turning point in the public's tolerance for media aggression remains to be seen. What's certain, though, is this: the line between truth and performance, journalism and entertainment, was irrevocably blurred that day, and neither party walked away unchanged. For Prince Harry, the fallout was more than a bruising interview, it was a stark reminder of the precarious balancing act between vulnerability and brand management in the spotlight. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry has meticulously shaped a public identity rooted in emotional honesty, advocacy, and speaking truth to power. But in Megyn Kelly's studio, that strategy met its fiercest resistance yet. The post-interview discourse made it clear: audiences are increasingly drawing a sharper line between authentic storytelling and what some perceive as self-serving narrative control. Online polls conducted by major outlets showed a split in perception. Many sympathized with Harry's emotional transparency, while others felt his insistence on victimhood had begun to wear thin, especially when met with Kelly's insistence on specifics, facts, and personal responsibility. For his detractors, the encounter confirmed suspicions that his media appearances were more about rehabilitation than revelation. For his defenders, it was an unfair trial by media, one in which no answer would ever suffice. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly, a figure long associated with provocative interviews and polarizing opinions, emerged from the clash with a renewed, and controversial, relevance. Her critics accused her of using the moment for self-branding, but others praised her for doing what few modern interviewers dare: holding celebrity royalty to the same standard of truth demanded from political leaders or corporate executives. Industry insiders speculated that Kelly's firm stance may pave the way for a new chapter in her career, where substance and confrontation reassert themselves over ratings-driven friendliness. The interview's virality, and the commentary it generated across mainstream and fringe platforms alike, highlighted a deeper societal hunger, not just for celebrity access, but for real-time reckoning. In an age where public redemption often arrives via documentary deals, best-selling memoirs, and curated podcasts, the Kelly-Harry clash felt unscripted, uncomfortable, and deeply necessary. It revealed just how far the public has shifted in its expectations of transparency, and how quickly sentiment can turn when a media-savvy figure is confronted with live accountability. The prince, once the symbol of a new, emotionally open masculinity, left the stage facing the same questions he had hoped to answer. And Kelly, never one to shrink from a media firestorm, stood at the center of it. All, divisive, unflinching, and undeniably back in the headlines.